Welcome back into the Big Drill Show. Evan Kamiko alongside Kevin McPherson. This is your Hog Hoops recap. Kevin, a lot's going on this past week. A lot of visitors in town to talk about. We also got our non-conference schedule. We'll touch on that in a little bit. But let's talk about these visitors who are on campus, some of the recruits who have stopped by. What do you got on these guys? What can you let people at home know about who John Calipari's going after?
Three big visitors, all 5 stars, and it started on Wednesday and ran through today. That's getting in. That's doing some pretty good business on your home campus there, bringing in players because Calipari, the last several weeks, has been going out to see players. We know Arkansas has been bringing players in, consecutive weekends, but this time you did. So you had three prior to this on consecutive weekends. This time you had three in a 5-day span. So you doubled your fun and you did it, jammed it all in there. But everything has sounded really positive for all three. Not a surprise. It's John Calipari, the greatest high school recruiter of all time. But it started with Tate Kenny, 6'2" guard out of Newport, Kentucky, plays at overtime elite. Had a relationship with Calipari and this coaching staff when Cal was still at Kentucky. And since he's been at Arkansas, they've just maintained that. Kenny, a class of 2026, the first player from that class, I believe, to get an Arkansas offer once Calipari was the head coach. But Kansas is a school that's thought to be the leader. Louisville's up there. Arkansas, one of the teams in his final 8. But I really look at Arkansas as, being in that top 3 with those two. Maybe some ground to make up. Kansas is thought to be the leader, but a really good visit with him coming in Wednesday and Thursday. Got to attend basketball practice. You had Jay Will, big Jalen Williams, pro hog, who was on campus most of the week, popping in and out of the performance center and getting treatment up there. So you had a lot going on this week with a pro hog, but additionally, the visits, man. You like having players from the past in the building if you can, and we've seen some of that already on some of these visits. Anthony Black was in on visit number 1 late August when Caleb Holt was in town. So a lot of stuff going on again, but started with Tate Kenny. And again, Kansas may be the team to beat there. Then we look at the 2 actual weekend visitors arriving Friday, departing Sunday. Again, 5-star guys. Kenny, I've got ranked 12th in the country, most services, top 15 5-star. Then you look at Jordan Smith Jr. and Erfan Diane, both in this weekend. Jordan Smith Jr. ranked as high as the second best player in the country, a combo guard, 6'2", out of Fairfax, Virginia. Best two-way player in the country, I think, when you look at offense, defense. But Duke is a school he's already visited, thought maybe to be the leader. Arkansas right there. Basically the home footprint school, Georgetown, another one, really heavily pursuing him. He's got a visit scheduled to Kentucky next month, and he may wait until the spring to make an announcement. But his visit, I'm told, was really, really good, as was Erfan Diane, a 7'1" center, 285 pounds out of Iowa United Prep. Another player that Arkansas has prioritized for well over a year. Same with Jordan Smith Jr. Diane, I've got ranked top 10. Another recruiting service has him ranked top 10. He is the number 1 center in this class. I've got him as a 5-star as well. So you got, it's John Calipari. It's how he rolls with his visitors. 5 stars coming in. Nothing but positives on all 3 visits. I think with the Kenny visit, because there's such a strong impression that maybe Kansas is in the lead there. I think the optimism was more cautious. I think there's maybe a little more, a little more swagger with the confidence of the last 2 visitors through the weekend. Not to say that Arkansas has picked up a silent commitment or necessarily taken the lead over teams like Duke for Smith Jr., Houston, the perceived leader for Erfan Diane. But Arkansas maybe improved its chances in situations where they were already considered maybe second running or 1A, if it's 1 and 1A kind of a thing, that Arkansas is actually maybe improving its standing with both players.
Yeah, I was curious for you, right? Like, it's always fun when we see former Hogs coming back on campus and giving back to the programs, right? Jay Will, you mentioned Anthony Black as well, who was in town. I know you got a chance to see his younger brother play pretty recently as well. So curious, when you have guys like that who come back, how important is that, especially for Cal, who, and again, it is Coach Cal, right? Like, he does not need anybody to help him. I think he has earned that right. But how key is that for some of these guys to see, you can come to Arkansas, even if it is before Cal, and still be able to go on and win an NBA championship like Jay Will did?
Well, it doesn't hurt having him there. I think it adds to it. Look, J.J. Andrews held a camp in Fayetteville on Saturday, a youth camp, and I interviewed him in the middle of the week, and folks can check that out on Hogville Net YouTube live channel. But that interview, I asked him, put him on the spot, are you going to pop in on Saturday? Those 2 visitors there. and he was, kind of joking around a little bit, but he might have made an appearance in there. This is a thing where all hands on deck. You're already off to a great start in that class with JJ Andrews, a 5-star 6'6" wing out of Little Rock Christian Academy. It's not like you're starting from scratch, but a pro hog being in there.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, it was Isaiah Joe that was in there when Abdu Torre, a top 30 wing out of the state of Connecticut, was on his visit. I mentioned Anthony Black, Caleb Holt. So to me, some of that stuff you say, well, how strategic is it? I think it's very. And again, yeah, Calipari, how much assistance does he need? Again, when part of your pitch is I take care of my guys and I'm focused on them, and then the strength of my program, wins and losses, results come from taking care of my players. Taking care of your players is delivering on and helping them to the next level. And if you're doing that, that means you're staying in touch with them. You're keeping tabs on them. You want them to come back. And even though those guys didn't specifically play for Calipari when they were at Arkansas, he's now the head coach of Arkansas. So he's embracing all of that. He's going to utilize that. So I think it makes perfect sense. And I think it can only help. I don't see any negative to it. I think it's only positive.
Absolutely. Curious, out of the three guys that we mentioned already, who do you see Arkansas, if they were to get one of the three, which one has the greatest chance to come to the Hill?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think Arkansas's chances, based on the way I feel about it right now, without calling Arkansas the leader for these guys, I look at it more like guys like Caleb Holt, who came in, who I mentioned, Brandon McCoy Jr. the weekend after that. I think Arkansas may be in the lead there. I've said that recently. Abdu Torre, I think Arkansas's leader or co-leader. Those were your three prior visitors. Kenny, they may have some ground to make up. Not ruling it out. It's less of pinpointing one of those guys, but when you cast a wide enough net, when you're only going to take 3 or 4 tops, probably maybe there's a pathway to go 5 if the dominoes fell right. But they've got other folks they're planning to still bring in, and so I think when you add it all up, it's not about saying this one as much as I think he's going to get enough out of this group of visitors and a few more to come to add to JJ Andrews to get to probably 3,
Mhm.
a minimum of 3 at the early signing period, maybe 4 by that time. And when the dust settles at the end of the spring, if you can put it together just right, maybe you expand it to 5. So instead of pinpointing 1 or 2 exactly who I think right now they'll get, I think they're in great shape with most of them, and I think they're going to get their share of them.
What's the potential advantage for Coach Cal if you do bring in 5 guys and kind of have a couple maybe sit on the bench and learn from some of the older guys? Again, we know he's going to go out. We know he's going to use the portal to find experienced talent. It's what he's done the last couple of years. But where can these guys, what's the advantage of having a 5-man freshman class like he used to do back when he was at Kentucky a couple of years ago and really relied on freshmen in that 2014 run to get to the national title, which you don't really see too often anymore in college basketball?
Well, let's say that you're in on some guys that might wait till the spring. We just mentioned Jordan Smith Jr. You have time to figure out as your season plays along who might be guys you really are going to be able to retain off this team. Who's going to the NBA draft? Some of them are going to time out with eligibility. Who do you want to retain of the guys that haven't had a big role, but you're developing and you don't? Maybe you see a future for them with you. Maybe you don't. So I think it buys you some time to make the decision on to get to 5 into the spring. And so that's where I'm going with that. I think it's more realistic that you stay with what your publicly spoken plan is, 3 or 4 in the early part of it before your season even starts to play out and you start to figure out what your roster is really going to, what what's optimal for retention. And again, what you want to get out of the portal, and then determine, okay, the pieces have fallen just right. Let's go ahead and go to 5. I've got a source that's told me that that's Calipari's thinking, that he's not ruled that out.
Mhm.
Preference is to be 3 or 4, but hasn't ruled out if the dominoes fall just right that there could be a high school class this time around that could go to 5. But again, probably less likely, but it's still a possibility.
Right. And to your point, it all depends on who comes back from this team. We know Arkansas in the 2025-26 season, they're going to have a lot of experience. You return 4 guys who played on the team last year. DJ Wagner, now a junior. Billy Richmond, a sophomore. Carter Knox, a sophomore. Trevin Brazil, now a 7th year, 8th year. He's been here forever, it feels like, for TB. But it's always fun to watch and see how well these guys do and to see if you can kind of backload a little bit and have guys that you can develop over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I just don't think the guys they're earmarking, the way Calipari does this upfront recruiting with high school, the guys are going to get NIL and he's trying to win these big prizes. He's not really pitching them on development in terms of a longer track than maybe potentially being a one and done. They don't take that off the table. They're not promising you will be a one and done. But some of the more developmental guys that you know you're going to keep around for a while, that will be more additions in the spring. Sort of like Paulo Samito, or Elmer Chavez. Jordan Smith Jr. would be different only because he wants to wait and see what some of his top schools are doing with their rosters before he makes a commitment. At least that's where he is now. But he's a high level, high money NIL guy where you're not talking long-term development. You're talking, we're going to try to help you fast track a one and done and get you to the next level. You can't control that. I mean, that was the plan for DJ Wagner, right? He's going into year 3. But the point is there's a difference between how you recruit that kind of guy versus really the most of the backfill stuff you would do in the spring, which is more longer term developmental guys. So there is a distinction there. So I'm talking about going to 5 in terms of the potential to have 5 players that you think can help you in their first year and potentially be one and dones. Not that you expect all of them to be or promising that. I don't think Calipari operates that way.
Yeah, as long as, again, if you can get 1 or maybe 2 one and dones a year, your team's probably going to be pretty good. And speaking of pretty good, Arkansas, they're going to be pretty good this year as well. When we come back on the other side of the break, we'll talk about the non-conference schedule, which faces a whole bunch of good teams. A lot of good talk to come on the Hog Hoops Report. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back into the Hog Hoops Report. Kevin McPherson, Evan Camico hanging out with you. Kevin, let's talk about this non-conference schedule. We knew it was going to be a gauntlet. You're going to face, I believe, it's 20 teams this year, 22 teams with 20-plus wins on the schedule as a whole. But the non-conference, we finally got everything confirmed. There's an exhibition game, 2, one in Memphis against Memphis, one home against Cincinnati at the end of October, before the Hogs open up on November 3rd against Southern. And then from there, it just keeps getting harder. Trip to East Lansing on the 8th, not to mention, you're going to go to Chicago, you're going to go to New York, you're going to go to Houston, or you're going to go to Dallas again. What catches your eye about this non-con schedule? Because it is a fun one.
Well, you just nailed it. You nailed the destinations. You got like 5 mega matchups in the non-conference slate. So it's a strong, week 1, you finish that up on a Saturday in a true road game at Michigan State. Oh, by the way, the defending Big 12 champion, an Elite 8 team a year ago, a team with a lot of expectations coming into this season under a legend, Hall of Fame coach, Tom Izzo. So you're getting off, you mentioned the exhibition games, Cincinnati and Memphis, but let's just talk regular season for now and that full 13 non-conference game slate. But the other 4 out, once you get past Michigan State, the end of November, Feast Week, Thanksgiving Day, the 27th in Chicago against Duke, defending ACC champs, a Final Four team from a year ago. A team that really looked like it had it wrapped up to get to the championship game against Houston and kind of bobbled that and fumbled it here in the last minute or so. And Houston advanced to the title game where it lost to Florida. So you've got that big matchup with Duke. Again, CBS will televise that on Thanksgiving Day. You move into December and you got 3 more mega matchups. You mentioned Dallas. You're back in Dallas. You played Baylor there last year, a Texas school from the Big 12. Well, it's the same scenario, but it's not Baylor this time. This time it's Texas Tech. We know what the history is there with Arkansas. Knocked Arkansas out of the Sweet 16. Looked like Arkansas was going to punch its ticket. The last 3 minutes didn't go well. Went to overtime. Texas Tech instead. One of the top 2 or 3 teams in that Big 12. That'll be expected to be similar this year. So that's a big matchup in Dallas and American Airlines Arena on December the 10th. And I skipped over a game before that between Duke. In that game, you're actually going to you'll be at home, you'll host Louisville, who finished in the top 3 last year, and what was an overall weak ACC, but an in-play tournament team under year 1 under Pat Kelsey. He's done a good job recruiting and filling up his roster. A lot will be expected of Louisville, but that's the 3rd annual ACC-SEC Challenge. This time around, Arkansas gets to host a game, so that'll be at Bud Walton Arena. Midweek game, December 3rd. Then you get to that Texas Tech game in Dallas. I got out of order there. I didn't plan to do that. So that's 4 matchups, right? Let's review it. Michigan State on the road, Duke, neutral site in Chicago, Louisville at home. Then you've got, again, in Dallas, a neutral site game technically against the in-state Texas Tech Red Raiders. And then the 5th matchup is another neutral site game in Newark, New Jersey, in the Prudential Center against Houston, the national runner-up, a team that'll have preseason projections, top 3, top 5 coming into the season. Another Hall of Fame level coach, Kelvin Sampson, And you play that again, a neutral site game on December 20th, also a Saturday. So you're inching closer to your league play that starts in early January. And you've got out of your 5 mega matchups, 3 of those play out in December. And one of the 4 or one of the 5 is at the end of November. So you start hot end of week 1 against at Michigan State, and then as you get to the end of November, you start to kind of build up.
Yeah.
You'll have some mid-major bye games, home games mixed in there. In that, but December is probably the most brutal non-conference stretch I've seen for Arkansas in years, because they normally don't play 5 high majors with that caliber of resume coming off what they did last year and what's going to be expected this year. And most of them, again, are played at the end of November through most of December. So it's much different than what we've really seen. It makes this a unique non-conference outside of just how strong it is, but it's when you're playing teams and you're really challenging yourself away from home. With one true road game and one true home game in that mix, you're back in North Little Rock. You're going to play a Mountain West team, Fresno State. Mountain West, a good mid-major league. But it's December 6th. It's a Saturday, by the way.
Yep.
Simmons Bank Arena in North Little Rock. They play an annual game here. But it's one of the worst teams from last year. Only 2 wins in the Mountain West last year. So even though that's a good mid-major league, it's not necessarily a strong opponent from that league. But Fresno State, again, Arkansas playing that Central Arkansas game against them. Another in-state D1 in the non-conference slate, Evan, UCA. That's November 11th at Bud Walton Arena. So early on in your non-conference play. And so those are really I think the headliners when you look around this non-conference league, because we've talked about it and we've known the 18-game SEC schedule for a while. So when you add up non-conference and league, you're playing all 8. I think this is unprecedented, all 8 Elite 8 teams. Mm-hmm. And because the field of the NCAA tournament only gets smaller from the Elite 8, that means you're playing every team in the Final Four, the 2 teams that play for the national champion and the defending national champion. And so by combining league and non-conference, I mean, that's Florida, defending national champion, Alabama, Auburn, a Final Four team, Alabama, Elite 8. The same thing with Tennessee, Elite 8. So there's 4 of the 8. And then out of your non-conference, you could just go in order of when you play them: Michigan State, Duke, Texas Tech, and then eventually Houston. So when you look at that, this is unprecedented. It's a gauntlet, and it would be different if it was just those were strong teams a year ago, but maybe that some of those teams aren't going to be as strong this year. What's the point of bringing that up? I think the fact that all of those teams are going to have preseason rankings, high expectations to either compete for league titles, if not win them, those kinds of things, I think it makes it really important to realize just how difficult and what a gauntlet and how unique this schedule really is in year 2 of Don Calipari.
Absolutely. You always want to schedule to your teams. If you believe your team can win the whole thing, you got to test them early, and that's exactly what's happening. Kevin, before we go, what's the one game you're most looking forward to on this non-conference slate? If you had to pick one, what is it going to be?
If I'm picking one, honestly, it's got to be, man, I'm torn. Right now, put me on the spot, I'm going to say Houston in Newark, only because that's your last big test. It is away from home. It's not a true road game before you get into SEC play. And I think Houston preseason is going to come in, just looking at it now, ranked higher, more expectations than the others. Duke will be up there too. The other one, that's why I'm torn. Duke could be the other answer. Just because it's feast week, so many eyes on those games, that'll probably be the most watched game in college basketball, and that may sustain. And because of the history with Arkansas Duke on big stages, usually NCAA tournaments, and then, both teams have highly regarded freshman classes coming in, as does Houston, by the way. I'm torn, man. Can I have a double answer? Can I have a 1 and 1 A?
We'll allow that.
Yeah, it's Houston and Duke in some order, and the closer we get in the season, I might flip that. The other ones are major though. Mm-hmm. Again, Texas Tech, Louisville, and Michigan State, don't sleep on them. But if you ask me non-conference, right now I'll probably have Houston 1 and Duke 1A. Yeah. With an ability to change my mind when we're off here in 5 minutes, and then we got to come back on and redo it. No, I'm kidding.
Kevin, you can change your mind as much as you want. I'm kind of surprised. I think Hog fans want to see that revenge game against Texas Tech. Obviously, you have the big lead and you end up blowing it, and I think they want to get that off their back. And I think for this team, it's a big thing, especially for those 4 returners we talked about early in the show, to be able to come out and say, hey, we know we let it slip away. We know we should have moved on, but it's always a good chance to get redemption, and should be a really fun game and a great atmosphere.
I agree with you. That there's a case to be made for that matchup as well. That's what I'm saying. There's so many storylines that you can
Mhm.
choose from that it's hard to pick just
Yeah.
one, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to do that.
It is,
You
but we
know,
we make you pick one,
you don't
Kevin.
open up a bag of potato chips and just single out the one that looks the
Yeah.
biggest, flakiest, and best. Because once you're going to grab multiple, at least in that initial grab. So it's kind of like that. You're asking me to choose one. I try to do it, but you even brought up the Texas Tech angle on that. It's like, yeah, for some, that will be the most important
You
game
you
in
can
that non-conference.
you can see the angles for everything. Kevin, anything else we missed before we wrap up?
Not really. That's it.
Awesome. Well, that
Football
makes it easy.
season Football
Basketball's
season's
here.
got
That
a lot of drama going on right now.
Yeah.
Basketball matters because of the visits and the schedule
Mhm.
just came in. All this stuff matters for hoops. We're right. We turn the page to October very soon. You've got that. We didn't even talk about this, but the prime time at the Palace.
Mhm.
Probably need to throw this in here. Well, we found
Yeah.
that out this week. Basically, a scrimmage for the basketball team at Bud Walton Arena. They used to have what were called Midnight Madness,
Mhm.
similar type thing early, and then and you get into your exhibition season and all that. But the prime time of the Palace will be at 8 p.m. October the 3rd.
Yeah.
That's a Friday night. And they'll have a dunk contest, a laser show. They're going to introduce the men's and women's team, and the men's team's going to have some kind of limited scrimmage. I'm told. I'm interested to see, is it just going to be coaches with whistles, orchestrating that? Are they actually going to, have officials out and the scoreboard running and those kinds of things? We just don't know. I don't know if we got enough detail on that, but it's a very interesting thing to leave with, to let fans know it's not far off, less than 2 weeks
Mhm.
before that event will take place. And so until that event takes place. So when I say basketball season's here, I mean that literally. We're here.
Exactly. And I think Hog fans really excited for basketball season and to turn the page. That's going to do it for the Hogs Hoop Report with Kevin McPherson. More Pig Trail Show coming up after the break. We'll be right back.